Hello, 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 and it is time for UFC 300. Also, I'll quickly talk about PFL 2 because I talked about PFL 1 and I feel like I should talk about PFL 2, and PFL 2 is honestly a better card than PFL 1 because it's not heavyweights and women's flyweights. It's men's 205 and men's 155. Now, the interesting note here is my 205 pick to win the whole thing was Phil Davis, who's not on this card. So I'm kind of interested. Maybe can I get a standings page for PFL 2024 season? Maybe, because that would be probably handy as to who's actually in these tournaments. Let's see here. Heavyweight, okay. Light heavyweight. Tom Breeze. Okay, so no Phil Davis. Tom Breeze, Josh Silvara, Impa Kasanganay, Rob Wilkinson, Alex Polize, Sadabusi, Antonio Carlos Jr., Simon Bion, Dov Ledzen, Yag Shmirdov, and Jacob Nadeau. All right, so my pick is not here. Who am I picking in this tournament? You could go Impa Kasanganay to win again because there's not really a ton of interesting new blood, honestly. For all the Bellator 205 talent, it's not really here. Like, they just basically brought in Alex Polize, who Kasanganay is fighting on this card, and Yag Shmirdov, who's probably not going to win because he's a bit weird. I'll go with Rob Wilkinson probably as my pick in the absence of ya boy, Phil Davis. So you got on this card, Kasanganay versus Polize. I'm going to go with Polize. I know that that's a, how should I put this? Underdog pick. He's like something like, plus 230 to plus 275. But at the end of the day, I do. Let me put it this way: if Impa Kasanganay, who I personally feel like is a middleweight, I really do. I don't think he's a heavyweight. The fact that we've seen him at welterweight, I think, kind of indicates that. Not a light heavyweight, pardon me, but like the fact that he's 5'11", he's not a 205er. Dude's the middleweight. We saw that he made weight against Johnny Eblen and fought him pretty well, but like. He just kind of won the 205 tournament last time because he didn't fight anybody particularly good. Like, Josh Silvaria is a fairly good fighter, but he's kind of unstructured and a little bit nuts. Martin Hamlet is not very good. Tim Caron is not very good. Corey Hendricks is not very good. So, I don't know. I'll go with Polize, and if Kasanganay gets past Polize, I guess there's a solid chance that he'll actually, come through with this. Rob Wilkinson versus Tom Breeze. I like Tom Breeze. I like him a lot, but his MMA career has not been great. Like losing to Brendan Allen in the UFC, losing to Omar Akhmedov, losing to Paul Pollock. I just can't really have the faith in him. Like he is a fantastic grappler, but I think he just has not the right mindset, temperament to actually really be a good 205er in MMA. There's a bit of a grappler's panic to him as a striker that opens up doors to even beat him at the grappling aspects of the game. So I'm probably not going to pick him against a guy like Wilkinson, who is pretty damn good. And then elsewhere on the 205, Sadabusi is fighting Josh Silvara. I don't think Sadabusi can win anything at 205. His game at welterweight, like I feel like this has to be emphasized, welterweight was being a tall, long fighter who, against most people who were like reasonably large for welterweight, had problems. 205 just seems like an incredibly bad idea. Antonio Carlos Jr. versus Simon Bion. I'm not super familiar with Simon Bion. I see a couple of Bellator fights for him. Losses to Jose Augusto and Christian Edwards. Wins over Luke Traynor. Luke Traynor's not a bad fighter. But I don't know you enough. I have a reasonable amount of faith in Antonio Carlos Jr. to implement a grappling heavy game on most people who don't have a very good wrestling background. So I'll have to go with Antonio Carlos Jr. Yag Shmirdov versus Nadeau. I don't know Nadeau all that well either. Let's see here. Jacob Nadeau. Some good records. He has wins over a guy who's 9-1, 8-1, 8-3. I don't know them though. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to see him be good before I pick him. So Yag Shmirdov on that one. And then what do we got at lightweight? We have Clay Collard, Patricky Pitbull, Mads Burnell, Michael Dufort, Bruno Miranda, Brent Primus, Gadzi Rabadanov. There you go. That's a mouthful. I always hate the BAD kind of combo. I don't know. My brain doesn't handle it well. JJ Wilson, who I like a lot. Solomon Renfro and Adam Piccolotti. I am going to go with. I know he's coming up a weight class. I know this is contrary to what I picked pretty much elsewhere, but I am going to go with Mads Burnell to win it. Mads Burnell is a really, really, really good fighter. I know he's coming up a weight class, but like, not really any of these guys are like super hardcore like wrestlers at all. Like, I guess Brent Primus kind of is. I think if memory serves, Rabadanov is a little bit as well, but like, that's about it. So, yeah, I think you can do this. In terms of what's happening in this card, Clay Collard versus Patricky Pitbull. I'm taking Clay Collard. I just don't have a lot of faith in Patricky Pitbull at this point of his career. He is 38 years old. He has a style that doesn't really generally age all that well. Yes, he still beat Roberto de Souza. He did beat Peter Queally, but like, he had no real answers for like Alexander Shalibli, Usman Nurmagomedov. And I know. Those guys are way better, as is Tufuk Musafayev, than Clay Collard. Like, Clay Collard brings like the violence, and Pitbull's probably not going to grapple him, which is his Achilles heel. So I'll go with Collard. Mads Burnell to beat my Canadian brethren, Michael Dufort, who's just not very good. Like, it's kind of weird. Michael Dufort is a guy who I didn't even think of when, like, I'm like, why is he here? Guy's lost to Kyle Prepelec. He's lost to Jesse Ronson. He's lost to Kyle Nelson. Like, he's lost to any notable like Canadian lightweight that he's fought, and featherweights. And no, Mads Burnell, go Mads. Bruno Miranda versus Brent Primus, going with Brent Primus. Rabadanov versus Renfro. I'm going with Rabadanov. I'd be surprised if Renfro wins a fight in this entire tournament. This guy, Solomon Renfro, is a guy who I've become very, very familiar with researching Dana White Contender Series guys. Frankly, because like, he's lost to Adam Fugit and Johnny Parsons and Mike Malott and Magomed Kirimov. He's not terrible, but he is not good. As a result, I'll be picking basically everyone against him. Adam Piccolotti versus Elvin Espinoza. Is Espinoza in the tournament? He's not listed here. Why is he fighting Adam Piccolotti? Oh, JJ Wilson pulled out. Crap. That's not nice. Anyways, I'll go Piccolotti in that one. I'm not familiar enough with Espinoza to make a pick in his favor. And I'm looking at his record. He did beat Keone Diggs. That's not terrible, but that appears to be the high watermark right now. So no, I can't really pick it, but like, I don't know. I'm here for like a 9-0 dude from a country that generally doesn't produce fighters and doing some fun. Although he is actually out of Miami, Florida. Why is he sporting the Nicaraguan fighter? I mean, I assume he's of Nicaraguan heritage, and that's really the answer. But I always find that a little bit silly. And then we also have a Marcelo Nunez, Jordan Heiderman heavyweight fight. I don't know. I've never been impressed with Heiderman, so I'll go with Nunez. I should actually look at this and make my picks at welterweight while we're at it. Koreshkov is, in fact, in the welterweight tournament, so I'm still going with him. Although, welterweight's pretty damn stacked. You got Koreshkov, Logan Storley. You've got Leandro Staropoli, who's not great, but he's okay. You've got Goto Yamamuchi, Neiman Gracie, Don Madge, who I was always weirded out that the UFC let go. Brennan Ward, who's flawed but tons of fun. That's not a bad tournament at all. But Koreshkov should win it. And then we got featherweight. Has that kicked off yet? Low game, Bubba Jenkins, Kizriev, Pedro Carvalho, Gabriel Alves Braga, Enrique Barzola, Justin Gonzalez, Kai Kamaka III, Brett Johns, and Adam Borch. I'm taking Adam Borch. There you go. And then, of course, like I said, I'm taking Liz Carmouche to win at flyweight. But I am hoping that it's Dakota Ducheva, mostly because that's somebody I think the PFL wants to build on, and also it would just be new. It would be new blood. That would be excellent to pick up here. So I would be down for that. And at heavyweight, I was going with Linton Vassell. I think that's pretty much done now. I guess I'm going to go with Valentin Moldavsky, but my low-key dark horse is Oleg Popov. So there's my PFL fights without really a ton of breakdown because, to be honest, it's not a ton to say. But, it's a fun tournament. It's probably the best tournament that they've ever had. And I'm quite happy to watch it. Now, I will say, their production values still stink. Absolutely. So please, for the love of God, fix that. Onwards to UFC 300, which is an amazing card. Now, I will say there are some negative impressions about this card, largely, I think, for two reasons. Number one, Dana White was trying to hype it up as like a fight card that would actually absolutely blow my mind, or fans' minds, I should say. And that didn't really happen. I mean, yes, we're getting Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway. That's a dope fight. We're getting 3 title fights, but there is not that. Dana hyped up, and it's his job, so I can't fault him for this. But he hyped up the main event so much that when it ended up being Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill, like it's a letdown. That is a phenomenal fight. Battle of 2 of the best 205ers on the planet, and it's going to be guaranteed violence. So it is a amazing main event. It's just the way that it was discussed, the way that it was hyped up. This is not that. Okay? Good enough? I hope. All right. And then for number 2 is the fact that Bo Nickal's on the main card. A lot of people are like, don't worry about it. Bo Nickal's going to be a star and whatever. It's maybe just the fact that I don't think Bo Nickal's going to be a star. Like, don't get me wrong. This is not a statement that Bo Nickal's not going to be an amazing fighter and probably hold a belt or whatever. It's just that I look at it this way. The people who are wrestling fans who have not crossed over to MMA yet are just not going to do it. That's my honest conclusion. They're fans of wrestling, and they're just not fans of MMA. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all. I mean, there are MMA fans that are not fans of wrestling. So why would the opposite not be true? And his like little kind of very minor celebrity with the right wing, I just think that there are people that do it better. I think he's optically way better for like talking about like anti-Joe Biden stuff, like going on with Joe Rogan and talking about how Joe Biden's crazy for thinking there were airports in the Civil War, the Civil War, or was it the Civil War? Or was it the American Revolution? I forget now. But either way, it was the fact that he was paraphrasing Trump, and then they just moved on. It was like, oh, that's hilarious that Trump would say that. That's our guy, but Joe Biden's actually the one going insane. I've talked about that before. As much as he's probably a far more palatable part of that, I don't think he hits the same home run that like a Sean Strickland or even a Colby Covington does. So let's talk about the fights. Enough talking about like the card and whether it's good or not because it's dope. Let's talk about the fights. Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill, main event. I talked about it. Let's get on to it. There has been a lot of discussion about this card about like both guys getting disrespected. So I want to go out of my way to make this clear. I could see either guy winning this fight. I could see either guy as the best 205er in the world. And the reason for this is that in a lot of ways, they're the same kind of fighter. They're offensively insanely potent with all the physical gifts you could ask for in a knockout artist. Pereira, it's the ability to find counters. It's the power he has. It's the chin he has, which allows him to, frankly, absorb a lot of damage coming back the other way. And with Jamal Hill, I don't think he's necessarily like the hardest one-punch hitter. I don't think he has the greatest power, but he is fast, explosive, and of course, 6'4", 79-inch reach, 6'4", 80-inch reach for Pereira. Like, they have a frame that is monstrous to deal with and a physicality that backs it up. So you have those two facts, and then you have the fact that they're both very hittable. Like I said, with Pereira, he sets up counters really nicely by baiting you into hitting him and then giving you that hook that he loves to hit people with. He has tons of knockouts, basically exactly like that. And with Hill, I just don't think that there's really a lot of idea of what he's doing as far as like, defense is concerned, which has been fine. He's gotten away with that because he's fought guys that can't really capitalize on that, except for, I guess you could say Johnny Walker, but that was during Johnny Walker's like, I'm trying to figure out how to be a smooth and like technical fighter, and it's not working. Yeah, it was after the Thiago Santos fight. Yeah, Johnny Walker had kind of been neutered by his own quest to be technical. And then Glover Teixeira, Love the guy, absolutely, but 43 years old. And then you have Thiago Santos at the ripe age of 38 years old. And then you have Johnny Walker, like I said, Jimmy Crute, Ovince St. Preux at the ripe age of 37. Holy moly. And then you have to go back to like, I don't know, you can't even really find a guy that like he's fought that is like considered universally dangerous that is in their prime. And Alex Pereira, 36 years old, is, not a spring chicken, but he still does seem to be in his prime. And that's kind of the problem, is that as much as Alex Pereira's idea of defense is itself very, very dangerous, because it kind of is, I let you hit me, but I see it coming and I absorb it, and then I hit you exceedingly hard back because you're out of position to receive my punishment. That is enough for me to pick Alex Pereira. Now, again, I want to say this. If anyone is like going to be surprised if Pereira knocks out Hill, or if Hill knocks out Pereira, I don't know what to tell you, because these guys are both entirely capable of knocking the other one out. It's just that there's a higher level of technique that I think Pereira possesses. And and two, we have Hill coming off an Achilles injury. 3, we have, I think, Hill being a little bit too dismissive of Pereira. Like, he's talking about this being like an easy fight and stuff. And I'm like, that is not the case, my man. And I know different fighters have different needs of getting themselves ready and getting themselves into, dare I say it, mental fight shape. And maybe this is Jamal Hill's way of doing that, but I don't trust it. So I'm going with Pereira. Would not be surprised if it goes the other way around. Pereira is the favorite at minus 125 to minus 140. Hill is plus 105 to plus 115. I would not bet a lot of money on this fight either way, which, by the way, brings us into the betting speech. Do not bet money. You cannot lose on MMA, because it is a fundamentally chaotic and dynamic sport that you're just never going to be comfortable with it in. Like, there has never been a fight that I've been like, you know what? Bet the house on it. Never done it. So, I hope to see nobody who takes my advice post up a video of them losing 25 grand or something. Women's strawweight title fight, Weili Zhang versus Zhang Yan, the Chinese on Chinese, main event of the century. I've got Weili Zhang. I get that Zhang Yan has had a pretty solid performance. Lately. Beating Jessica Andrade, big deal. Beating Mackenzie Dern, big deal. Huge deal. Do not get me wrong. But if you look at Zhang Yan's wins, they're all against people who I think you can point to significantly large holes in their game, structurally speaking. Andrade is a fighter who has no real structure and got knocked out. Mackenzie Dern is a fighter who has one elite skill set, grappling. And that's kind of it. She does not have a striking game that is functional. She does not have a wrestling game that is functional. And despite that, and despite going 2 for 11 on takedowns, she still managed to bank like 10 minutes of top control. That is a problem against Weili Zhang, who is a far more physical where it counts, because she's far more explosive and fast than Dern, and a much better technical shot wrestler than either of the other two ladies that we were talking about. So I see Zhang being able to take her down. And then on the feet, I don't think it's a wash in any way for Zhang. She's a dangerous striker. She has good power, but it's not like Weili Zhang is not a super strong striker who has outstruck Joanna Jędrzejczyk on 2 separate occasions, has absolutely dominated Amanda Lemos and Carla Esparza. By the way, Esparza, I think, has a win over Zhang Yang. Am I not mistaken? Yeah, it was a 2021 win, but it's still a win. And I would be surprised if Weili Zhang lost the title here. She is a minus 480 to minus 500 favorite, which tells you that I'm not alone. And Zhang is plus 340 to plus 375. I'm going with decision because Zhang does not prioritize the finish. And Zhang Yan is a reasonably tough cookie and a relatively sound decision maker. She's not gonna throw a finish out there on a platter. I'm kind of wondering, is that the second largest favorite on the card? I know the biggest favorite is Bo Nickal. Yes, that is the second largest favorite on the card. Second widest line. So, yeah, there you go. Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway. I see this as a bit of a replay of the Dustin Poirier Max Holloway fight. Not in the sense that it's like Gaethje and Poirier are the same or anything, but if you watch that fight, there's a lot of moments that work for Holloway at 145 that are not going to work at the very top of 155. Now, to be clear, I am in no way saying that Max Holloway can't win fights at 155. He can. He'll beat anybody that's not ranked. He'll probably beat a good chunk of the ranked fighters. It's just that there are certain things that he gets away with at 145 because he can absorb the power really, really easily. Not really easily, but like easily enough that he can regroup. And in the fight with Poirier, if you watch it, Poirier is able to hurt him. Like just actually hurt him. Just be like, you know what? I don't need to do anything super cool or exciting to hurt you. I can just hurt you. And Gaethje can do the same thing. If Gaethje puts together all the tools, like he brings his jab to the table, he brings his low kicks, he is the same height but like longer fighter, he is the rangier fighter if need be, and it's not like Max Holloway is going to bring like a super intrinsic like wrestling game to him, because Gaethje is somebody who admittedly his biggest weakness is his grappling, because his grappling is garbage. His actual wrestling, perfectly fine. His ability to scramble, his ability to stop takedowns, that kind of thing, fine. But if you put him on his back, he's kind of useless. But like Holloway doesn't do that. Holloway wants to engage constantly in violent exchanges at the edge of the pocket, ideally. And Gaethje's quite fine to do that. And I just think he'll be the one hurting Holloway and not the other way around. So I've got Gaethje by decision. TKO would also be not super surprising. I could dig it, but to be clear, I'm not crapping on this fight. I'm looking forward to this fight. This is BMF title, and it belongs for the BMF title. I want to make that clear. This is going to be a violent, awesome affair. It's just I don't see Holloway being able to put him in danger the same way that Gaethje can put him in danger. So I've got Gaethje decision, probably TKO, maybe. And then he's a minus 155 to minus 180 favorite. Holloway plus 130 to plus 150. Haven't really seen anything I'm all that interested in betting on, except for probably a little bit on Pereira. And then we move on to Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan. Again, this is another great fight. The battle of the two guys that beat Beneil Dariush. Full disclosure, I have to bring this up. I have to do this. I have never been on the Tsarukyan hype train. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a good fighter. I think he's going to be a good fighter for like a long, long time because he's only 27 years old. It's just, I've always thought that at 5'7", which is pretty short for lightweight, if we're being honest, I think it's by some margin the shortest guy in the rankings. There are some limitations to Tsarukyan's game. He is a very, very good wrestler. He is a great athlete. He has phenomenal balance. He has a good kicking game to go with that, but his boxing is a little bit shoddy. And at 5'7", and at 155, to be clear, the, possibly deepest and most Shark Tank division of all, I think that's a major problem. Charles Oliveira, on the other hand, I have some concerns about. I've always said this. I've never actually been sold that Charles Oliveira is absolute poison to grapple with. And people say, well, you're just looking at his old losses to like Ricardo Ramos and stuff, and you're forgetting he's a new man. And to a degree, that's true. I think he's become comfortable with the fact that he's going to get hurt fighting and so on. Like, he's realized that he doesn't find range very well and that he's almost always going to get a bit of a crap kicking at some point in a fight. But I do think that you can out-grapple him. I do think you can be on top of him and get things done. So that's the pathway to victory for Tsarukyan. It's just, when I look at Tsarukyan, I still don't like his transitional striking game. I still think that he's going to go for takedowns that are a little bit too obvious, and that Oliveira is going to be able to do reverse shots against, and particularly hit up dynamic stuff in the clinch and the wrestling exchanges with knees and elbows and punches and that kind of thing. And at some point, I just think he hurts Saryukian and does the old club and sub to the young man. That being said, I would love to see Saryukian win because I do think that he stylistically matches up pretty well with Islam Makhachev, and they fought once and it was a great fight then. I think it'll be even a better fight now. I think both of them are far better than they were then. So, like, that's a dope fight. But I also wouldn't be, like, terribly disappointed to see Charles Oliveira fight as well. Although I do think we're probably going to get Dustin Poirier as the next title contender just because of timing. It's kind of like the one thing I don't like about Gaethje fighting Holloway on this card is that I think it should have been saved for Islam Makhachev's post-Ramadan fight for a title defense. And instead we're getting it here. But I get it. I understand. We'll rock with it. Oliveira by sub. He is the underdog. -1 or +165 to +190. -200 to -230 for Saryukian. I have no problem with that, but I do think that is a bit wide. Well, I shouldn't say I have no problem with that. I have no problem with Saryukian being the favorite. I do think that that's a little bit wide. 185-pound fight, Bo Nickal versus Cody Brundage. I have not much to say about this. Bo Nickal is a far away. Like, do the Star Wars text crawl right here. Better wrestler than Cody Brundage, whose main way of winning is to wrestle. He's not even really a good striker. I think that maybe Brundage is a more diverse striker and maybe a little bit more comfortable of a striker. But Bo Nickal is going to rip this man apart. No disrespect, but Bo Nickal is going to destroy this man. He's here. The UFC has given him a stylistically very, very favorable matchup against a guy who at least has some wins in the UFC. And it's like technically a step up, but like I don't even know if it really is. I mean, we've seen Brundage get out wrestled by Jacob Malkoun, Cedricus Dumas, Rodolfo Vieira, Nick Maximoff. These guys are not even close to Bo Nickal. So Bo Nickal, TKO, probably. Submission, maybe. Decision, I hope not. Because Brundage is reckless enough that he will give you opportunities to finish him. And I would hope that if Bo Nickal is going to be as good as we hope, want, expect him to be, that he would get the finish here. So Bo Nickal, I'm going with TKO, but you could go sub as well. He is a -2,000 to -3,000 favorite. Brundage +950 to +1,200. Would not bet on this fight. I don't think that there's a way. I don't even know what a Brundage win looks like, honestly, aside from random injury, basically. And I have no idea. I would never bet on a fighter that's -2,000 at his lowest. That's insane. I think that's why this fight is not super interesting as a main card fight, because we'll see Bo Nickal do some cool stuff, but I don't want to pay to see Cody Brundage just get beat up. There you go. I'm not going to complain about the placement too much, but I don't know. I don't love it. And then your feature prelim, I do believe. Let me just quickly look at the card to make sure that I'm correct on that. Yep. Yuri Prohaska versus Alexander Rakic. Oh my lord. That is inspired. Book it. So here's the thing. Could this fight end up being a little bit dull? Maybe. Rakic does have the ability to make a fight dull. He has done it before with his control-based wrestling game and his low-pace striking that slowly neutralizes the fight and kind of puts a little bit of a wet towel on it. But my God, has no one ever really done that to Yuri Prohaska? At no point has anyone ever really done that to Yuri Prohaska. He is an insane, marauding, I want to say Viking, but he's Czech, which is not Vikings. I need something equivalent, but he's crazy. He's this weird, combination of Viking culture and samurai Bushido, and it makes for an incredibly exciting fighter. It does mean that it's a fighter that can probably lose to just about anyone. He's kind of similar to Jamal Hill and Alex Bahia that way, in that they are 205ers that live this meta of guys who are incredibly dangerous, but at the same time, am I absolutely sold that they couldn't lose to any top-end athlete at 205? No. I think the big problem here, though, is that you've got Rakic coming off of a considerable break. he's been injured and he's being given the road welcome back fight of fighting Yuri Prochazka. And I think the problem here is that also that like Alexander Rakic does really lack good wins. We're going back to the well where he's beaten an aging Thiago Santos, an aging Jimmy Manoa, Devin Clark. And the fact that I have to include Devin Clark on a title contender's resume is a little bit of a problem. And then Anthony Smith, whose record against, longer fighters is exceptionally poor. So I am going to go with Prochazka to be an overwhelming physical force, a storm of striking, maybe even some takedowns, and get the job done. But it is dangerous. It is dangerous that, like, the reckless abandon of Prochazka does take him into a very strong, neutralizing clinch and counter game from Rakic that could be a little bit ugly. But I am going to go Prochazka by decision, just because I don't think, has Rakic ever been finished? I'm not counting the, the Jan Blachowicz fight as an actual finish. No, he went the distance with Volkan Oezdemir, and I do not know what happened in a fight with Christian Radke, who apparently never fought again. Dude debuted, beat Alexander Rakic, and retired. What is this? So, yeah, I will go with a decision. Prochazka is the underdog at plus 105 down to minus 107. Rakic minus 115 to minus 125. Very close odds. It should be, but I'm going to basically tip Prochazka's way because while he has not beaten anyone quite like Rakic, if I'm being completely honest, Rakic hasn't even faced anything remotely close to what is coming here and is coming off of a layoff. Calvin Kattar versus Aljamain Sterling. The dynamic of this fight is fairly simple. Aljamain Sterling wants to close the distance, get the body lock, get the takedown. He will shoot, but usually likes to work the body lock. Wants to get back control and out-grapple him. And I'm perfectly willing to believe that he can out-grapple Calvin Kattar. But Calvin Kattar has a good jab. He has a good volume striking game. He utilizes kicks. He maintains range pretty well. He has good counters. He is pretty damn hard to out-wrestle himself. I'm kind of actually wondering here, what does UFC stats have for his takedown defense numbers? I imagine that they are quite good. I remember looking at his fights and like seeing very, very few takedowns. He had 91%. Did not get taken down by Josh Emmett. Did not get taken down by Dan Ige. Did not get taken down by Jeremy Stevens. Not that I think did Stevens even shoot? No, Stevens did not shoot. So I guess I shouldn't use that example. But Dan Ige went 0 for 9. And I'm looking at Josh Emmett. He went 0 for 4. Now, I will say this. Aljamain Sterling is a more proven takedown artist than anyone that I'm talking about here. Ricardo Lamas only shot once. Did get taken down by Chris Fishgold. So there you go. Something to think about. But the big question here is, well, two big questions. Number one is, of course, Aljamain's coming up a weight class that usually does not work great for his style. Because a takedown artist is the guys who usually benefit from the massive, massive weight cuts to try to be huge dudes for the weight class. So going up a weight class probably does give us a new, less effective Aljamain Sterling. But two, Calvin Kattar is returning from an injury of significant margin. He is now 36, which is the wrong side of kind of that imaginary line at 35 that we've kind of established for the lower weight classes. So I am going to go with Aljamain Sterling, but I feel like we're going to know very, very quickly in this fight. Like on the, second or third takedown attempt by Aljamain Sterling, we're probably going to know. We're probably either going to know that he can take Kattar down without too much fuss, and he's going to win the fight, or he's going to have a really, really hard time at 145 with guys like Calvin Kattar, and he's going to get pieced up a bit. Because his striking, it's improving, it's getting better, but it is still very reliant on being able to threaten takedowns to actually function. So, Sterling by decision. He is the minus 160 to minus 180 favorite. Cater is the plus 135 to plus 145 underdog. There is value on Cater. I'm not gonna lie. Kind of tempted. So looking back, I'm definitely probably gonna put a little something on Prohaska. Probably definitely gonna put a little something on Charles Oliveira. Probably put something on Alex Bahia as well. And yeah, that'll be about it, I think, so far. Then we have Holly Holm versus Kayla Harrison. I'm going to cut this one real short for you. I'm picking Holly Holm just because of the weight cut. We are watching Kayla Harrison try to make 135 for the first time. She's had struggles making 145 before. She's not done it in a hot second. She's largely been fighting at 155. This just seems like a really, 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 really bad idea. That's all there is to it. Now, if you could give me a crystal ball and I look into the future and I see that Kayla Harrison has done the weight cut entirely correctly and it doesn't impact her, and it's not only that she can make the weight, but she's just as strong and as vital and is ready to dominate at 135 as she is at 155, I would pick her because Holm is 40 years old and has increasingly been pretty clinch reliant, which is not where you want to be against an Olympic level judoka. It's just, I can't pick someone on this kind of weight cut. I cannot do it. I cannot bring myself to do it at all. I may regret this horribly at the weigh-ins when Kayla Harrison struts out and is looking good and ready to go and destroyer of worlds. But I am picking Holly Holm by decision. Knockout not being impossible, but I don't think she really has that one-shot power anymore. When was the last Holly Holm actual knockout? Kind of curious here. I kind of want to say that it I could be wrong on this, but we might be going back to the Ronda Rousey fight. No, okay. Betchko, which doesn't exactly alleviate my fears at all. Going to decision with Megan Anderson, Raquel Pennington, Irina Aldana, and Yana Santos is not exactly doing me a lot of love here. So will I be cheering for Harrison? Sure. We desperately need new blood at 135. If she can be it, that would be great. That would be dope. But that weight cut is extreme. We're talking like her usual walking weight was 170. So we're talking 35 pounds of reconfiguring body mass to make this weight. Not necessarily a straight cut, obviously. There's dieting, there's bringing it down, but that's also going to rob her of some of her power, I think. So, yeah. That is my answer. Sadiq Alex Harrison is the favorite at minus 425 to minus 480. Do not bet on that. If you must bet on this fight, Holm at plus 320 to plus 360 is the answer. Do not bet on someone coming down 2 weight classes, please. For the love of God. Especially not at minus 400 plus. Sadiq Youssef versus Diego Lopez. This is the low-key banger of the night. This is an amazing fight. Lopez is chaos incarnate, both as a grappler and as a striker. He kind of has a bit of a Charles Oliveira vibe to him. He is the guy who probably honestly does his best work in transition, both as a striker and as a grappler. He gave Mozar Evelev a heck of a time. And then, of course, since has beaten Pat Sabatini and who else was it that he beat? Was it Gavin Tucker? Am I misremembering that it's not Gavin Tucker? Nope, I should trust my instincts more. It was Gavin Tucker. Sadiq Youssef is coming off of a loss to Edson Barboza and wins over Don Shanis and Alex Caceres. Lost to Arnold Allen as well. I am going to go with Lopez to have the bigger moments here. Don't get me wrong. Sadiq Youssef is a really, really good fighter. He's got good power in his hands. He's got some kicks. He's got a great clinch game. I think he has a judo background. I could be wrong on that. And he's a sound defensive grappler and control-based guy. But if Mozar Evelev has a hard time controlling you and you are yourself very unpleasant to strike with, I kind of have to think Sadiq Youssef is not going to like the activity Lopez brings to him on the feet. And number 2, he is not going to like the activity on the ground and that there's going to be big moments. And whenever those big moments happen, it's going to be Lopez creating them and profiting off them. So Diego Lopez is my pick by decision. We'll see. I'm looking forward to it. It's dope. Lopez is the favorite, minus 140 to minus 148. I was kind of hoping he'd be the underdog. And Yusuf is plus 116 to plus 122. Jalen Turner versus Hanato Moicano. Moicano wants money. So here's the problem. Jalen Turner, as much as I think he's taking life off of his, life, years off of his life, that's the phrase I'm looking for, by cutting to 155, because he's a 6'3" monster, and it's insane. He is very, very dangerous. He's very, very potent, and watching Moicano have real problems with like Drew Dober, that's not good. That's not great. I see Turner being the longer, more venomous striker. Moicano does have takedowns. We have seen Turner lose to a wrestler before in Matt Frivola. But like Matt Frivola had a hell of a time keeping him down. And even Mateusz Gamrot had a hell of a time keeping him down. So I've got to go with Turner to be the physically superior fighter, a guy who should be at welterweight, taking on a guy who was at featherweight. It's a size and physicality difference that I've had a hard time looking past. And Turner's violent shit ended in TKO because I'm starting to doubt Moicano has like the actual durability to get it done against top end talent. Don't get me wrong, UFC caliber. I'm not saying cut him. I'm not saying anything like this. I'm just saying that when he gets up to the ranked area, like the guys who are either ranked or like maybe the top 25, there's just a lot of physicality there that I'm not sure he can deal with. That being said, give this man Paddy Pimblett. Jalen Turner by TKO. He's the minus 225 to minus 265 favorite. Moicano plus 185 to plus 205. Jessica Andrade versus Marina Rodriguez. This is not a super complex fight for me. The problem is that Marina Rodriguez does not, despite the fact that she has the frame for it, 5'6", 65 inches, like at strawweight, that's pretty big. She does not fight in a way that capitalizes on that reach. She does like to exchange in the pocket, and that is going to open up the power swinging of Jessica Andrade, as well as the power-based takedown game that Jessica Andrade has as well. I know Jessica Andrade, we kind of were like really, really worried about watching her lose 3 in a row and beating Mackenzie Dern by knockout. If you've ever heard me talk about Mackenzie Dern's striking, you know that I do not rank that at all very useful, but she is still physically amazing in terms of like as a physical presence. And like Rodriguez did have problem with the physicality of like Verna Jandiroba and even Carla Esparza. So yeah. Andrade by TKO. She's the favorite at minus 135 to minus 145. Rodriguez plus 110 to plus 122. I am looking forward to the fight, even though I think that like the winner is a fairly easy outcome to determine. It's still a cool, fun fight. Bobby Green, Jim Miller, all hail Jim Miller, Mr. 100, Mr. 200, Mr. 300. Make it happen. The comeback from Lyme's disease. The man is still winning fights in the UFC Shark Tank at 40 years old at 155 pounds. Let's go. That being said, I'm picking Bobby Green. If you look at Jim Miller's wins in recent memory, they're guys like Gabriel Benitez, who is pretty good. I like Mowgli Benitez, but very, very fragile. Jesse Butler, not very good, period. Same with Eric Gonzalez. Roosevelt Roberts, very, very fragile. 2022, Donald Cerrone, just very, very done. And then like Nicholas Mota is the one that like kind of stands out as an actually pretty good win. But that's about it. Bobby Green, on the other hand, has been losing a little bit lately, has been getting finished for the first time in his career. I think, honestly, how far back do you have to go to get a Bobby Green finish before his recent losses to like Makhachev and Dober and Turner? Oh, Dustin Poirier back in 2016. This guy has been historically like incredibly durable, despite the losses to Turner and Dober and Makhachev, all being by finishes. Let's be honest, they're also really, really dominant fighters. Like they are top-notch power hitters in the division. In the case of Turner and Dober, and in the case of Makhachev, the best lightweight in the world right now with a phenomenal wrestling game and a dominant position where he just pounded out Bobby Green on short notice on top of that. So, yeah, I've got to go with Bobby Green here to be the slicker striker, the more structured boxer. Granted, the worst kicker, but like that's nothing new to him. And being like a good enough wrestler that like 40-year-old Jim Miller isn't going to get free takedowns and isn't really going to get dominant positions on top. So I'll be cheering for Jim Miller because I'm always cheering for Jim Miller. I am big on Jim Miller, but picking him to win fights against like guys who are like really UFC caliber is a problem for me at this point. So Bobby Green is the favorite, minus 175 to minus 186. He's not a finisher, so decision. And Miller plus 142 to plus 150. And then we have Deiveson Figueiredo, Cody Garbrandt, two former champions opening up the card. What more could you want from an opener? And I do mean that. Like, as much as I'm not a Garbrandt fan, I am frustrated by the fact that he doesn't make use of a jab like he should. I am also frustrated by his physical dimensions of somehow having a 65.5-inch reach at 5'8". What is that? But he's an exciting fighter. He's a fun, talent here. And I'm picking Figueiredo because Figueiredo seems to have a more functional game at this point. Garbrandt does seem broken. He absolutely still has the physical talents, the speed, the power, and so on. And I don't even think his chin is necessarily that bad. Ironic, like, it's bad. It's soft. Don't get me wrong. But I think with like proper defensive ideas and a working behind a solid jab, maybe even mixing a couple of takedowns in, Garbrandt would actually be okay. But that's not Garbrandt. He is still kind of going punch for punch in the pocket and trading chin for chin. And that's not going to work because, well, Figueiredo is probably not a championship contender anymore. He's up a weight class where he's going to be a lot smaller. He is still a power puncher. He is still a big hitter. He is still pretty explosive. He is still pretty fast. And as Rob Font found out, he stings really, really hard. So I see Figueiredo TKOing Cody Garbrandt. Apparently I'm not alone. Minus 300 to minus 335. Plus 235 to plus 255 on the opposite way to Garbrandt. Still, this is going to be an amazing card. Well, okay. This should be an amazing card. Obviously, the MMA gods are a fickle, cruel creature and might just make this terrible. But I think that this should be an incredibly good card. Let's see what happens. And that's really all I got to say. Check out the links down below for social media, video gaming stuff, and most importantly, the MMA Simulator Discord. I'll be doing the play-by-play, well, not play-by-play, but scoring the rounds and summarizing the rounds over on Twitter on Fight Night. And it is also the finals of our Discord Fight Master Series. A champion will be crowned. It's really going to be Juliana. Don't get me wrong. She's like 9 points ahead. And it's 10 points for a win. So it's pretty hard to see her not winning this one. So preemptive congratulations, Juliana. And hopefully I jinxed you.